be showing you a vampire themed nail set that is all hand painted, and it has this gorgeous faceted red foil that's kind of the main theme throughout the entire design. It's on the very top of the vampire's dress, it's on the other nails, and then there's this black jelly ombre that goes over it, and you can see the facets in the red through the black. It looks so cool. I absolutely love this. Even the nails that are what I would say mostly plain, the pinky and the index finger, are still just so pretty with that foil. So I hope you guys love this design as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. Bye!
So we're going to begin on the middle finger, which is the one that has the actual vampire face. And I'm going to start out with a creamy light gray, 1 or 2 coats depending on what's necessary. And then I'm going to use a darker shade of gray to start sketching out her face. And when you're doing a darker shade of gray, you may want to just take your light gray and mix a little bit of black into it to darken it. If you use 2 grays where the base color is too far off, because typically when you have a gray, it's either a little bit blue or it's a little bit green or slightly yellow. It's got just a hint of a base color in it. That's a primary color. And if that's the case, then if you use one that's darker, it may not blend in very well because it may have a different base. So if you are picking out your gel polishes to use for this and you don't think you have ones that go together exceptionally well, if you just start out with black and white and mix all of your grays, or start out with a single color that you want to use as the base and then continue to darken it or lighten it as needed, that can also work. So after I have just like the beginning essence of her face drawn in with that medium gray, I'm going to take a darker gray and I'm going to start shading it in, adding layer upon layer. You don't necessarily need to overly blend things together. If you want to do a little bit, that's fine. I kind of decide as I go, but for the most part, I like to start out with just line work, not blending it in, so you can almost see, you know, the different grays. You can see gray 1, 2, and 3 with no blending. It's not a gradation, it's sharp lines. Almost think of it like a topography map, if you know what those look like. I love to do things when I think of them like a topography map, because I think that just is a good visualization. If you don't know what that is, you could look one up and then you would understand what I'm talking about. But anyways, that's what I like to do. After I have those baselines in, if I want to go through and blend them out a little bit, you can certainly do that. And that's what I'm going to be doing now. And for some reason, I just think it's easier to visualize sections without blending them in first and then go through and blend them slightly if I need to. And then I'm going to mix some white into that light gray to get a lighter shade, and I'm going to be adding some highlights to her face. Another thing to keep in mind as you're doing this, and if you have that topography map style, after you apply a top coat, whether it be matte or glossy, it's going to blend things together, especially if the colors are very similar. So if you have, you know, several shades of gray that you're working with, the actual difference from spot to spot is quite minimal. So then when you apply a top coat and it just softens it all together, it looks so beautiful and it just melts it. So you don't have to overly blend. You may want to blend a little bit. I'm blending in some, but you don't necessarily, it doesn't need to look completely flawlessly blended and smooth. And one more point to make on this whole thing is human skin is not completely smooth, or vampire skin, I guess in this case. It wouldn't be completely smooth. So if it is completely smooth, it almost has a falsity to it because it looks too perfect. And to me, having a little bit of unevenness actually adds to the realism, and I like it, my personal opinion. So go with whatever you want to on that note. Once you have the shading done on her face, just for the, you know, the different planes of her face, and you don't have to worry about things like lips specifically, I wanted to fill in her hair. You can do whatever style of hair you like for this. I went with kind of a Victorian era, at least I think Victorian era, that's what I was thinking, because it's kind of like a Victorian Gothic vampire hairstyle. Straight black, very, very dark, very rich color. Use gel paint for this instead of gel polish. If you have been using gel polish until this point, it actually works quite well for doing that little bit of face painting. It, again, softens things slightly. But for the hair, to get those really sharp, crisp lines, I would recommend using a gel paint. And all of the gels I'm using, whether they be gel paint or gel polish for this, are from Madam Glam. And I will put all of the color names in the description box below if you are curious. I think that their gels are absolutely wonderful for painting. I also really like that the gel polish cures in 30 seconds. And if you're painting something like this where you have to cure frequently, having a gel polish that cures in 30 seconds rather than a minute speeds things up remarkably. I'm going to, still using my black gel paint, start adding some of the more finite details in her face. Nostrils, lips, eyes, that kind of a thing. I filled in her lips with black, even though I did want them to be red. If I started them out with black, then later I can go back through and add the red on top, but they still have this really deep base depth to them. I'm going to outline where the top of her dress is going to be, add her eyebrows. Like I said, just go through and start filling in all of those details that you really need to have. And when you're doing these finer details, if you have some stuff and you're really happy with it, flash cure it or fully cure it. And the reason to do that is that if you're really happy with eyebrows, nose, lips, and then you go to do the eyes and one of them is larger than the other, or one of them's crooked, whatever the issue may be, you can always go back through and just wipe it off. But anything that's not cured is going to wipe off as well. So if you're really happy with something and you don't want to run the risk of having to erase it, if you will, just cure it really quick. Even if it's a flash cure and you carefully wipe off the area that you want to have another go at, it won't mess it up. So that's something that, you can always kind of have in the back of your mind, as if you're just really liking something, take the time to cure it. It could potentially save you a lot of extra time and hassle in the future. I'm going to add a little more darkness on the shading on her face. I want really intense shadows, like her face has just direct light on it. And then after you have that done and you can go through and it's been cured, fill in her eyes with white. You're just going to go through and do some more of these details. In any kind of a painting like this, the amount of detail you add is on a scale. So you can do things very simple. You wouldn't have had to do any outlining or detailing on her face as far as the shading goes. I said outlining, but that's not the word I meant. You wouldn't have to do any shading on her face. It could just be a single gray color, and then you could be done. Same thing with her hair. You can leave it straight up black. I wanted to add a little more texture to it, so I'm going to take my medium gray and add highlights to her hair in the first layer, flash cure that. I'm going to add this is where I'm adding some of those red tones in her lips. The red in her lips doesn't really show up very much in the video, unfortunately, but it really does show up in person. It just has this very dark, subtle red hue to it. I'm also going to be using red, a few shades of burgundy color, and a bright red to be adding the details in her eyes. I'm going to smudge out the bottom red area to look. My idea was almost like she was wearing red makeup and it smudged, or kind of like she was crying tears of blood was more my idea there. Add a little bit more red in her lips. Bring in as much color as you want. And after that's done, you can go back through and add some more details wherever they are necessary. I'm going to darken up around her eyes with colors besides red. I love the red, but it almost took over her eyes and I wanted it to definitely still look like she had eyes. So some more outlines, give her some eyelashes. If this was, if I had a bigger space to paint, you could have so much fun with that red smudging under her eyes and it would just look so gory and creepy. Add her pupils. A little bit more of a white highlight and very select high points on her face. Make a little straight line down the bridge of her nose and then just a little cross line, almost like an upside down T on the tip of her nose. Or you can think of her whole nose as a bridge up into her forehead where the leaves and the branches would be. The trunk would be up the bridge of her nose, and then just the very tip of her nose would be a tiny little bit of root. But again, add these highlights wherever the high points are. If you want to know the high points of a person's face, look at any type of a mannequin. Or not even a mannequin, but just look at a person, and when you're trying to decide where to put the highlights, imagine the things that stick out the farthest. So, under the cheekbones, there's a hollow. Don't put highlights there. On top of the cheekbones, on that very upper ridge is where you're going to want to highlight. That kind of a thing. Almost like you're doing makeup. Very similar to doing makeup. So if you are somebody that has never really gotten the contouring of a face, makeup aside, just when you're painting, watch some makeup tutorials. That actually really made a lot of sense to me, watching some crazy contouring makeup videos. You get the idea because it's the same concept. They're basically painting a face on top of their face. So if you really want to get how to paint a face, those contouring videos are pretty incredible. Once I have all of that done, the last little bit I'm going to do with gel paint on her is painting her cowl necklace. And when you're doing this cowl necklace, pick a design you really like because it's going to be reused at least somewhat on the other nails. So I started out with just a choker line going across her neck, and then added some half circles drooping off of the choker, polka dots on top of those half circles like beads, and then a pendant hanging down from the very middle. Have fun with this. I mean, you can do some really ornate detailing on the choker necklace. So you can do as much or as little as you like, just like with the rest of things. And then once you are happy with the shape of of this necklace and everything else, oh yes, of course, don't forget her little fangs as well. But once you're happy with everything else that you have done, you're going to want to cure this very, very well and then apply. So when I say very, very well, just make sure it's fully cured. Sometimes I don't fully cure things because I'm just rushing and flash curing. This time fully cure it and then apply a foil glue gel right on the dress, making sure not to hit the other areas unless you've top coated them, because just the cured gel polish will pick up some foil. If there's any spots where the foil was missed, fill them in with a red or dark red gel polish and then apply a layer of top coat over this nail and cure it again. Now on the thumb and ring, we're going to be just starting out with a nude jelly color, and then I'm going to paint a deep V French tip with a dark red color gel polish. This red is not going to show very much in the end because we are going to foil top coat it, but it's always a good idea to put a base of a red color underneath a foil, especially a foil area of this large large space, because if it happens to wear as you are wearing this design, most likely the risk of that would be at the tip. Then you don't want it to show through as being a different color or clear. You want it to still have a similar color. I actually then cleanse this nail with some nail cleanser slightly, not trying to take off too much color, but just remove as much of that stickiness as I can, the inhibition layer, and then I'm going to press my faceted red foil over the top of the tip using a silicone tool to seal it down into the foil glue gel that I applied over the red. Once that has been fairly well sealed, you'll be able to release it. If any of the red foil got stuck to the nail bed area of this nail, use something to scrape it off. You can try to remove it with just like a gel brush, but something that actually has a scraping motion like a cuticle pusher works better. Then use some black gel paint that you mixed with top coat to create a jelly black. We're going to be adding a shadow on the smile line. So apply that and then smooth it out. I wouldn't recommend using a gel polish mixed with gel top coat. If that's what you have, obviously use it. But if you do have black gel paint at your disposal, use that instead because it won't flow over the smile line and you will still get that nice crisp smile line. So now using just straight up black gel paint, I'm going to be adding a similar cowl design to the very top of this nail. So like I said, similar, it's not exactly the same. I did switch things up a little bit, but it's kind of the same idea. So I did first a teardrop shape, and then I added loops to the sides, and then I doubled all of those up. And now going through, like I did on her necklace, I'm going to be adding polka dots, little dots to all of those lines. It gives it a beaded texture, and it just makes those little lines go from kind of humdrum to really elegant in very little effort, at least I think. So then after you have those, and to make those little polka dots, you can either use a dotting tool or make tiny strokes with a nail art brush, up to you. I'm going to add a line going straight down the middle and then add some circles on that, leaving the very end open. Once that's been cured, apply some jewelry gel to the end of your line, going down to the very point of the smile line, and then at the very top of this whole cowl area in the middle, and then apply some glossy gel top coat over the entire design, making sure to cap the jewelry gel, and then press some crystals into the jewelry gel that is still uncured under the top coat. Once that's done, cure that, and that will seal those crystals in place. On the index and pinky, we're going to begin with a full coat of our dark red gel polish, cure a full coat of red foil, or not foil, foil glue gel. Then after that's been cured, press your red foil into the glue gel. Voila. Once that is done, should be easier than for me to, it's easier to do than for me to say it. Oh goodness, my words are something else today. Then we're going to apply a shadow of the same black gel paint and clear top coat mix from the cuticle, brushing it down the nail. The red facets will show through and they will just get darker as they go up. Absolutely gorgeous, like hands down prettiest thing ever. And I'm going to be applying jewelry gel right along the proximal fold, top coat, and then press in your crystals. Unfortunately, the crystals do not show up very well in that video, but they show up beautifully here. So gorgeous. I love this design. The facets of the red foil make the whole thing just look like it's wet or deep or something. It looks almost like they're on fire. It's so pretty. I hope you guys are as excited about this design as I am. If you did do a recreation with just the red nails, they still give a vampire vibe, and I'd love to see it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!